And ethnicity is the fact or state of belonging. This comes from, if you Google ethnicity in the Google browser, here's what you're going to get, the Google search engine rather. The fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition, all right? A membership in a group of people who share characteristics we've already talked about in here. At this point, I'm guessing that you guys have probably already talked about culture, already talked about religion and language. Well, that language, customs, which is like part of one's culture, history, common experiences, religion, all of these things are going to play into one's ethnic identity. And there's that word identity. I didn't talk about that specifically in this PowerPoint, but when we talk about someone's identity, is how they view themselves. Okay, so there are two ways that people become identified, and that is one, you identify with something that you feel that you are. Okay, for example, I am the world's greatest AP Human Geography teacher. Booyah! All right, so I might identify as the world's greatest AP Human Geography teacher, but what about my students? They might identify me as the world's worst AP Human Geography teacher. So you can have someone who identifies with something based on how they feel about who they are, as well as the identity that people have based on how others feel about them. So we call that identifying, or there's a form of identifying, maybe identifying against. That might not be the right way of saying it. But people often have their own perception. That's maybe the word I'm looking for, is the identity can be something that's perceived oftentimes. Nevertheless, not to look too much of that right now, maybe in a little bit. When talking about ethnicity, it's how people identify on the basis of these things here, more or less, their culture. And so it's more than just race. Here's the definition of race. It's a categorization of humans based on skin color and other physical characteristics. You see the difference here? So race and ethnicity, now to be clear, in the United States, we use these terms interchangeably. We might mean ethnicity and say race. We might mean race and say ethnicity. Okay. For example, if you refer to people as Jewish, let's say you have a Jewish neighborhood, you're really talking about their ethnicity. Okay. Usually, if you talk about your Black population, you're usually talking about ethnicity as well, but you use a racial categorization in order to bring about that point. So again, Black, white, these are going to be skin colors and are going to be racial attributes or racial characteristics, physical characteristics. But ethnicity looks more at the culture. So another way to kind of look at this a little bit more deeply is race a part of one's ethnicity? I feel like it very well is. The human race, there are less differences of variation between humans than there are between subspecies of dogs. And yet, if a dog is all one species, then certainly we are as well. So the point that I'm trying to make is that despite outward appearances, the differences between human beings is genetically non-existent. So to take this another way, race is socially constructed. Okay, what the heck does that mean? What does it mean if something is socially constructed? Anybody have a guess as to what I mean by that? Or have y'all heard that terminology before? When we talk about race as a social construct, what we're talking about is that it differs depending on what society believes it is. That's really interesting. Okay, so another way to look at this is, let's look at Beyonce. Okay, she is light-skinned, right? And we might refer to her as light-skinned. Everybody in this conversation knows what that means. Okay, so we would consider her, if you're looking at Black or white, we consider her Black. But she's very, very light-skinned to the point that if you're looking at another country like Brazil, where racial constructions are more varied among darkness or lightness of one's skin, she would be white. True story. So just the fact that two different countries or two different societies have differing opinions about what Black and white is goes to kind of back the point that I'm trying to make to you. And really, that kind of thinking is incredibly rare to us because we're raised into a society that has a very standard definition for what race is and the differences that come with it. I'll challenge you today to think about that and listen more so to the culture that goes along with that, rather than to assume that people are different mainly on the basis of simply skin color or bone structure or whatever it might be that we're going to talk about today.